It's been very busy lately. And I'd like to share some insights for what's happening up that way. So please make me welcome.
Galang Gabadaru Waba. Good day, everyone. My name is Adrian Bauwens. I'm a tribal custodian of Waka Waka region, which is about 3 hours inland, Bunya Mountains, Toowoomba region. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Yinabara mob. I'd also like to acknowledge the elders of days past and present. For without their knowledge, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the ability to learn culture and how to look after the land through a cultural lens. Just a little bit about BPAC and myself. BPAC is Bunya People's Aboriginal Corporation. So our mission is to heal country and strengthen songlines and pretty much work on country through the vision of the elders and work with the land in that kind of way. So, myself, no longer a park ranger, technically. My job's changing more into a forest health officer role. So with that in mind, I'm kind of looking more into biosecurity, how to heal the land with traditional knowledge, bringing and empowering Indigenous groups with biosecurity and the knowledge so they can manage the land with that in mind. And yeah, that's us. So a bit of a discussion, talking a bit more about culture and the impacts of dieback with culture. So there's been a resurgence with Indigenous culture lately. People are starting to tap into their old roots, especially with hunting and traditional uses of plants and materials, whether that's hunting with traditional tools, making kulamons, spears, boomerangs, anything that was done in the day, we're trying to bring it back and own it. And Phytophthora is having a significant impact on those sort of activities. With that in mind, there's a lot of cultural stories and values within our land. We're fully tied to country, everything about it, whether that's your totems and animals. On myself, I've got my totem here tattooed. It's a bearded dragon. You know, we wear our culture on our sleeve. These animals and stories are important to us because it teaches us not only about ourselves, but what happens on the land. And when we lose those animals and trees, we lose a part of our identity as well. And so, with that, it affects our mental well-being and our spirituality as well. And so, dieback's been a huge issue in this area because once you start losing the trees, ecosystems start to collapse, animals will go somewhere else, and we lose our connection to that space. So culturally, this is a huge issue for us, and I'd like to extend that connection to everyone else as well. You know, I'm sure everyone here in this room, in one shape or form, cares about this land and has a special place in mind that they love to go to and care about. And so, when I speak about our connection to land, I want you to think about your special place you like to go to. I want to discuss a bit more about storytelling and our communication when it comes to this topic and really anything to do with the environment. Just a quick raise of hands. How many of you remember Baba Black Sheep? Raise your hand again for, you know, if you can remember, I don't know, the Three Little Pigs. So, the last time you probably heard these stories and songs was probably 20, 40 years ago. And the reason why we remember that so well is because stories and songs stick to the brain. It's literally built into us to interpret and take in information better with a story or a song. And I want to tie that into our Dreamtime stories. Indigenous culture, when you look at a certain animal, there's a message there. I won't tell these stories, they're not mine, but you look at a crow or a magpie, for example, and you're like, you did that to yourself, buddy, I'm sorry. But there's a lesson there with that, and it's tied to something that's important when it comes to learning about stuff. And I think it's important that when we get up on stage like this, we share stories. Everyone here has a story about their own place in this life. Me personally, I've been working on bunyas for a long time, and my story with the bunyas, it's continuing, but it's a bit heartbreaking, like getting to know and love a place and seeing dieback for the first time in your country and just realizing the impact and damage that this disease can do. And so I encourage you to tell your stories. For me personally, I can't connect with scientific data, graphs and all that. Like, I can see the metrics, statistics. That's all good. It is interesting. But I feel like it's hard to relate to. And for some people, it's hard to digest, So I think it's important we share our stories because, once again, we'll remember that. And so going back to when I first came into contact with dieback, I was fortunate enough to be working with Dr. Louise Shuey. She did a talk up here last year. So for years before this event, I've been working on Bunya Mountains for a while, a couple of years, and I've always heard about dieback, dieback this, you can't see it, you can't feel it, anything, it's invisible, but it's going to kill everything, and we're like, oh yeah, that's bad, but it kind of slips to the back of your mind just because you can't see it. And so Louise took me for a walk. And if you've ever been to the Bunyas, it gets pretty thick and the climbs are very high. So we're walking, it's muddy, climbing through vines that are like barbed wire. Every second plant's trying to sting you or stab you. And, just getting anxious, just walking towards these trees because they know where it is, but I just don't know what it looks like. Sure enough, we finally get there, as we're walking, birds chirping, country's healthy, until we get to the spot and you look up, everything just goes silent. You can hear the wind, the birds are gone. And it's just the skeleton of this once mighty tree, dead. My stomach sank. It shook me. I've never seen dieback, and I didn't know how much this could really go. And so, I'm not gonna lie, it stressed me out for a few weeks straight. I went home, I legitimately had a couple nightmares over it. I'd be chilling in my room, on my days off, and I'd be stressing because I'm here relaxing, but there's so much going on with this dieback. It's concerning. Anyway, that's me and dieback. Ever since then, I've taken a huge interest, and now we're starting to make some big moves, which I will touch on very shortly. Some vectors of dieback. One of my favourite lines I like to say when I get up on stage is, a lack of awareness is a vector. Now, that's no one's fault. You know, communication is hard, but the public needs to know this more and more. You gotta assume that no one knows it, and you pretty much would be right. We've also got people. There's been a couple times with the dieback stations, I've had to go and fix them up or maintain them, refill them, and there's just people going around them, not really caring, saying, I was just gonna, let the mud on my bike just flick off the road and it'll be all right. And we're like, that's where the dieback is. We've got animals as well. Pigs are a huge thing on the Bunya Mountains. There may be a relationship with pigs and dieback. That's already a thought, but there is a bit of a study from councils, workers that are looking into that. So they're taking samples of pig activity and kind of lining it up to see, if pigs are more active here, is there more dieback there, sort of thing. Hygiene's another huge thing. Going back to those washdown stations, someone's mentioned it before, but we do have the New Zealand model of washdown stations, which kind of force you to go through them, but we're still finding if people see they're closed, as mentioned before, people are just going to go off track and help themselves to the land. With that all in mind, we're still working with dieback every day, or when possible. It's a huge task, but it requires, collaboration from all parts. So we've been collaborating with partners such as DAF, Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, and Forestries. So we have a good relationship with Louise Shuey. She's our go-to plant pathologist. She will work in the lab, taking all our samples and pretty much giving us the data that comes with that. So what's good there is Brisbane's about 3.5 hours from the Bunya Mountains. And so it's pretty convenient for her if we just get the soil samples and take it to her, rather than her coming up, going back down, testing it. Bit of a process. We're eliminating friction in the process, so everyone gets what they want, everything comes smoother and quicker. And so when she does her work in the lab, we can have that data as well, put it on a map, shows us where dieback is, where we need to monitor, and they have the results and can work with the dieback in the lab. There's been a bit of engagement in future works with the council from Dolby. They're particularly interested in the pig activity, as I've mentioned before. They're, as I said, monitoring the dieback and all that. They're also capturing pigs, collaring them, seeing where they are, pretty much getting to know them. It's another collaboration there. We don't have the capacity to take out the pigs ourselves or really act on it at all, but the council do. So we just communicate back and forth what's happening there, and if pig traps need to be checked on or refilled, we can do that. Lately I've been fortunate enough to go to a lot more conferences. So there was one in Perth with Mia, with the DWG group. I was able to get my green card there and learn pretty much what's going on in the WA space with dieback. They're a lot more advanced than what we're doing here. Just the sheer amount of knowledge and work that goes into dieback. They've got interpreters, they've got management plans on even construction sites, and that can get audited at any time. So it's really like everything's kind of in place and being looked over. And I think it's really important that we bring something like that over here as well. So we're looking into maybe getting the green card guys to come over and do some workshops and training. I was also able to go to New Zealand not too long ago, met Mita. It was really interesting to see what's going on across the world. Everyone's dealing with dieback, from China, Brazil, they even had Greece, Europe. Everyone's got it. It's just affecting them in a different way, and everyone's doing their own little angle from it. But a lot of it is science-based. But what we want to try and do, and I'll take a page out of Mita's book, is bring science and traditional knowledge together, which will bring innovation in this space and hopefully create a better future for us all. And we can all be talking and working together. Another big thing with engagement and working with dieback is the significance of engagement with First Nations groups. Instead of sending people from the labs to come out and do a lot more work, we've got people on the ground always. Indigenous people are more than happy to work in this space. We love country just as much as you guys. We would love to help out and really have some ownership over the work that goes over on our land and really, bring us all together to upskill others. You get the point. Anyway, so what are we currently doing? Right now, I'm moving from park ranger to forest health officer. And with that said, as I mentioned before, we're looking to build a biosecurity network for First Nations people to work together and empower themselves. Now, if any mob here want to connect, get my details and be a part of this space, I more than welcome you to come chat. I'm a bit shy, so I probably won't approach. You're more than welcome to come talk to me about it all. Working with partners and identifying key areas where we can help each other and make processes better, just like our partnership with Luis, working with Jeff and AJ. I'll give them a quick shout out. Jeff and AJ, they're going around bringing in, workshops and training programs to a lot of groups working in the regions. And we're looking to really upscale that and include it on a national scale, I suppose. We've had a keen interest in drones. So we've been training, doing workshops on drones, just for monitoring dieback and seeing changes from, an aerial view, if you will. So, with that said, when we lose our land, animals, trees, and all those aspects, we lose our identity and culture and our connection to the land. That goes for everyone. We're more similar than everyone likes to think. We share similar passions, love, and stories on this land. Tell your story and allow others to learn from it. We're not certain where this work with dieback will go. There's no certainties, but we're going to go for it and see where the space takes us, and hopefully a good outcome will arrive. And moving forward, we hope to build a biosecurity network that supports First Nations people's knowledge and blend it together with science and build a better future for us all. That's all I really got to say. It's a bit short, but happy to answer some questions. I can't really go too much in the scientific realms, but anything else, I'm happy to. But I will jump back onto Olbaint's question about a study on fire on the grasslands. So QUT are doing a study on the Bunya Mountains, fire-treated land versus not treated. This also relates to stories of the land, like country even tells stories. So there are significant changes in the grass. Grasses can tell you whether cattle have been there or if there's been fire. Anything that's going on in that grass. But what we're seeing from fire is significantly less litter and biomass on the ground, which is really good for all our little animals that live in those grasslands and really benefit from those sort of ecosystems. So that's in the works. Hopefully we have the results soon, but it's looking pretty good so far.
One's just died, maybe it's old or whatever else, but then realising, and there's another one, and there's another one, and that kind of moment in your head where you thought, oh, we've got some trouble here. So yeah, totally. And that's why all of you brought your hearts and your minds and your hands into the room to be part of that. Thanks, Adrian, for reminding us of that.
Thank you.
Comes from the heart. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
Just a brief question. As lay people and landholders, should we be report? Is there any system whereby we could report a dead bunya that delivers out from it? So. I know in WA there are systems for people to report gathering that database, and there's that isn't up and running in South Queensland yet. Okay.
There is an app. iNaturalist, yeah, that's the one.
So that so on that iNaturalist, there is a Bunya Dieback project. You need to just search for the project and get some local information on that. But it is something that we need to work on to develop.
You can't do our naturalist, just send what information you can to us and send a location.
There you go.
Send it to myself.
And you'll load it in.
I'll load it. Yeah.
There you go. Spencer's emails on that piece of paper, so if you've got any more,
thanks, Adrian, for your talk. It was fantastic. One of the questions that I want to ask is about soil. So dieback travels in the soil and it feeds the plants and it kills them. I just wanted to know if there's anyone in the room that has knowledge about soil and whether they've taken soil samples within all of these areas and what that soil sampling is telling us. So the roots of those trees are going to go down a long way. So what's on top is also underneath. So in saying that, what data are we getting across the footprint on soil sampling, not just over the last 50 years, but over the last how many other years, 100 years, or whatever. Is there a story in the soil about dieback and its impact on the country?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of the soil sampling personally myself. Regarding how far back that goes, I'm not too sure. All I know is the story that's going on currently right now. So what we're getting right now is kind of the makeup of that soil, like what's been there, what kind of strain of dieback is in that soil, and what kind of trees it's targeting. But anything else, I'm not really too sure. I've just got like data of what's there and where it is, sort of thing. But that's kind of what I'm after anyway, so I've got nothing outside of that. Yeah.
So I think I'll hook on, there has been soil pathologists working on it, but it is a funding issue, so we need to, when Andrew Powell said if there's anything that we need to remind him of, I think more funding for soil testing would be great. So yeah, and training people how to, you know, Adrian's been training people to take soil samples.
So it's like the stuff that Adrian's talked about in the sense of how that scientific stuff is going to have an engagement or relationship with traditional owner stuff, or the things that rangers are doing, or at that particular level. I mean, I often think about, okay, we've been sitting on this planet for a long time. Does anyone done the genome of dieback and where dieback actually comes from? So if it comes from another part of the world, where did it come from, and has anyone got any idea how it got here in terms of how that? What is dieback? Is dieback a virus, or is it what's the other one? Is it bacterial? So it's a water mite. Mold. So it's a mold. So it sounds like it's a bacteria. But anyway, so it's about that, and where does it come from? Is there anyone in the room that knows where it comes from?
Judging what you're reading, whether it comes from detected in Australia in the 1900s, early 1900s or around 1900, and most likely came from Southeast Asia.
You're asking some great questions, Uncle Colin. I'm seeing the need for a panel next year. So as a group, just to answer, because there's a bit of complexity and interweaving. My understanding with the phytophthora organisms is that they are only detected when they're becoming a problem. So where they originally exist, they are to a degree in harmony with that system. All sorts of assumptions going on here. And it's only when they're taken into a new environment that they become an issue. Phytophthora silhymai, there's talk about it being in Australia on the New South Wales east coast for about 400 to 600 years. So pre-cookie at least. So maybe with the Spanish or the Dutch or Polynesian travellers. But these organisms only appear to become problem. We know so little about them. And that's really good questions that we're hearing today is about what do we know about the rhizosphere, what do we know about what's happening in the soil? We don't. There's so little resource put into that. So that would be a fundamental to come out of the dieback working group, is to have these discussions about how can we make this, when I'm saying healthy country, it's not just the trees and the birds and the kangaroos, it's the soil. The soil is where it all comes from. So sorry for chucking me, but I'm loving these questions.
So, in regard to our dieback, as mentioned, you've got like Cinnamomi, Agathidicida. On the Bunyas, we have Multivora, and that's suspected to be from South Africa. But the thing with pathogens is, or any kind of country sickness, is it can just travel the ocean if it really wanted to. Some diseases will just fly straight across and cause trouble from there. So it's really hard to tell. Bunyas has dieback for decades. We're not sure how it got up there, but South Africa is where it's suspected to be from, that one.
Hi Adrian, I'm really curious, you've been talking about the overlapping of our traditional knowledges and scientific knowledge. And I've had this burning question, and I'm sure that your dream stories are very similar, about Bunya and Kunyam, the brothers. Has there been any tests done? Is Kunyam susceptible to the same Vitoria as Bunya?
That's a hard one to answer because certain trees will not be affected, and it's really hard to really track that unless you go sample every other tree. The only ones I know of are like the Bunya, the Mobile and Whitewoods. There's a few others, but like there'd be different lists of trees for every different type of Phytophthora. So really, yeah.
Because I was thinking about if Bunya and Kunyam, so the Bunya pine and hoop pine, they're brothers, and we've known that for centuries. And so I was just really curious if the hoop pine is showing itself to be resistant to this PC. I'm just really excited to see if we can transfer that knowledge. Thank you, Adrian.
Oh, thank you. Definitely something to look into. I can't really speak too much on this, but I know in New Zealand they were looking at more traditional healing methods. I think with the Cody's, sorry, I don't mean to tell you a story, but the Cody's have a relationship with the whales over there, and I think they were trying out like whale material to heal those trees, and I think they were seeing some progress with it, but yeah, that'll be great.
We call it Mata and the Maleny, so the cooler or the whale sperm one mainly that have a relationship with Cody, so they're brothers. They're all linked together and one decided to part, and so it didn't, and one decided to stay. So as part of the funding that we give out, scientific, to help with science and innovation, we also give money out to innovation around Mata and Maleny, sort of natural healing processes. So some groups go for frequencies and vibrations, which, that's what we all do, right? When we go into the bush, the ears ring, there's something going on there, that you'll feel it, all those sort of freaky things that happen when you're in the forest. It's a different place. You're in a different time zone. And one of the things that the groups are doing, so when whales wash up back home, there's a group that specifically cuts it up, renders it down, goes for the spermicity within the brain area, and they store that. They mix it with a bit of bone and a bit of tea tree, which you have here as well. And then that's applied to the tree. And I must say there are some great results that are coming through from that natural healing process. Unfortunately, with some of the processes that we use, some of the public got hold of, like vibrations and music and all those sort of things, and then spun it into something else. But the natural fact, we took our CEO to one of the places where the results speak for themselves, and the trees starting to bounce back. Bit of faith and truth in these sorts of things.
I want to tell something. No one in the room, by the way. So, the discussion that Adrian and you just had, there's something there that's important. And that story needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. Whether you do it here now or whether you do it some other time, that's important. It's important for two reasons. It's important because mob need to know about this discussion, that story, and we need to talk about it, and it needs to be shared. But the caveat on it is that we do that first, and then see where we go with it, and then share trauma. But you know, I think that's really important. There's something in there. I can feel it.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, Kate, your last question before we keep moving. Sorry.
Thanks, Adrian. Great presentation. My question relates to when you see like an area of trees that have, you know, succumbed to dieback, and there's like one that's standing strong and hasn't succumbed, almost like it's immune. As far as, obviously it's not going to address the actual disease itself, but as far as keeping the numbers there of trees, has there been any either work or observational work by Indigenous Rangers to do with propagating seeds from those trees that appear to be immune, and then when they're planted, are those offspring also immune, or is it too kind of early to see that yet? Because I know they take a while to grow.
Yeah, so can't answer whether or not they stay immune. Regarding their immunity, if the trees surrounding it are dying, the dieback might already be in that tree as well, but depending on conditions of the environment, that tree might stay for a bit, then go, but there's the possibility it is immune. Regarding the seedlings, we do have a couple of seedlings in a nursery, hoping to shoot them up and bring them back, sort of thing, so hopefully something good comes out of that in the future.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Sorry. If anyone would like to imagine another great